stop for a second and think about how you see your future. Do you want to see how we shape the future? Do you have a smart solution? We will guide you through the expansion process and help your company enter into new markets. Welcome to our Business Accelerator IPM Tech Hub. You need to upgrade your digital infrastructure. No worries, we will find a smart financing solution as well, using EU funds for digitalization. As we will guide you through the process of digital transformation, we need to make sure all of your data is protected from cybersecurity threats. We will also educate your employees so that they minimize the chances for a cyber attack. As we become more and more digital, it is inevitable that we will also become more green and more sustainable. Choose wisely. Our team of experts will prepare a strategy and lead you through this transformation that will benefit both your company and the environment. The digital appearance of your company in the world is also important, isn't it? Our team consists of young but experienced individuals that have the knowledge and passion to create comprehensive, strategically oriented solutions. Are you ready to sign up for our virtual academy? Knowledge is key. Therefore, we offer our clients educational modules that provide them with necessary competencies for the digital future. Welcome to our think tank. Here, we strive to include and connect different systems with the goal of enhancing democracy and improving the overall political culture. You are the one who decides what future you want to see, while we are the ones who shape it. IPM Group, shaping the future.
So with this delightful video, I would like to officially open the Going Digital conference and welcome all the viewers, participants, and partners of our conference that is organized by IPM Digital, which is part of IPM Group, under the auspices of the US Embassy of Slovenia. We'd like to thank the US Embassy for making this event possible and would like to invite Michael Marble, a Foreign Service Officer at the US Department of State, to say a few introductory words. Michael, are you with us?
Yes, beautiful. Now, thank you. Sorry, I was muted. I couldn't.
Don't worry, fine. That's the way digital tools are, right?
Exactly. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for attending this conference on Going Digital, and I want to thank IPM Digital and especially Tilen Gorenšek and his team for organizing it. I also want to acknowledge Minister Andrijanič's support. It's wonderful to see the importance the government places on this topic. The U.S. Embassy here in Ljubljana is proud to be co-sponsoring this conference. Often digitalization is disruptive within society, causing drastic changes across a number of areas such as jobs, wages, inequality, health, resources and efficiency, and security. But digital innovation can also be an opportunity for governments, for business, for the public, and for the way in which we all relate to one another. In America, of course, the birthplace of the internet, we've long seen a rapid changes that come with digitalization. The US digital government strategy, launched almost a decade ago, is aimed at building a 21st century government that works better for the American public. It's enabled the American people and an increasingly mobile workforce to access high quality digital government information and services anywhere, anytime, or on any device. These past 2 years have shown us the necessity and importance of digitalization as we have dealt with the impacts of the COVID pandemic. Digitalization can also be a positive force within society as well. It will create millions of new jobs around the world, form entire new sectors of the global economy, provide access to information and opportunity to those otherwise left out, and help us all combat global challenges like climate change. We're also happy that Bradley Sherman, founder and CEO of the Super Age, will be joining the conference this afternoon to discuss demographic changes due to digitalization. We look forward to continuing to work with you all on this issue, and we hope that you're able to truly enjoy and get a lot out of this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Bradley, for those, thank you for those introductory words, Michael. Now I'd like to ask the Minister for Digitalization, Mark Boris Andrijanič, to say a few introductory words as well and welcome the audience. Mr. Andrijanič, are you with us?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, first, please allow me to start my video too.
Okay, just a moment.
No problem at all. Seems like I'm lousy at all things digital. I should just resign, I guess.
No worry.
Anyway, guys, it's great to be with all of you. And I must say that I would like to first thank the organizers for bringing all of us together. It seems like things are finally working. Thank you. Hallelujah. Excellent. See, we all need some additional digital skilling. It's never too late, I guess. So thanks again for your kind introduction, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. And I must say that I'm very certain that this event will generate a lot of new ideas, not just in the field of digital transformation, but also in many other fields. As you know, Slovenia is becoming a green and digital leader of Europe. After all, we produce the finest electric planes. This is something we're super proud of. And we also host UNESCO's AI Center. As you all know, we are also the birthplace of Talking Tom and many other cute and legendary creatures from the world of digital entertainment. Today, as we all know, the digital world is super globalized. AI, as well as other advanced technologies, know no borders or other limits. Therefore, I think it is crucial for all of us to really work together in harvesting their enormous potential. Slovenia, fortunately, is well placed to lead the way. Given the number of inhabitants, we have, watch this, we have the largest number of AI experts in Europe. Of course, this is no coincidence, since Slovenia has a long and proud tradition in AI research, led by the world-renowned Jožef Stefan Institute. Moreover, you can find our cutting-edge researchers like Jure Knez and Marinka Žitnik all around the world, from Stanford, Harvard, Oxford, and many other top universities. Of course, digital transformation of the economy and the public sector also plays a vital role in a country's development and competitiveness. It has been a force for good in a number of areas, from medicine and education to communication. I think we should never doubt the limitless potential of digital transformation to save and improve lives around the world. But we need clear rules and effective protection to safeguard the very ideals we hold so dear. Therefore, it is no coincidence that Slovenia set digital transformation as a top priority of our past presidency of the Council of the European Union. I'm proud that we've managed to achieve major progress on a number of pieces of European digital legislation, which will ensure safe, open, as well as inclusive cyberspace. I'm delighted that we managed to reach a unanimous agreement among all member states when it comes to Digital Services Act and Digital Markets Act. Both acts will pave the way towards a more resilient and transparent internet. And this is something I think all Europeans need right now. When it comes to the national level, I think the Slovenian digital transformation truly gained a new momentum. So last April, we established the Strategic Council for Digitalization, comprised of our leading tech entrepreneurs, researchers, as well as educators. In August, we set up a new government office for digital transformation led by me. I would say that our task is quite simple, but yet extremely ambitious. We want to become one of top 5 most digitally advanced countries by the end of this decade. This is why we're implementing 40 very specific and concrete measures that will accelerate digital transformation of government services, healthcare, education, the economy, and society at large. I'm delighted, actually, that the government will today adopt a new package of 25 solutions for the digital decade. Now, a couple of weeks ago, there was another amazing development. Our parliament adopted the Digital Inclusion Act. This is the first piece of this kind of legislation in our part of Europe. This Digital Inclusion Act will help us launch the largest digital skilling program in our history. Our goal is to bridge the digital divide that increased during the pandemic by providing our youth, the elderly, as well as other vulnerable groups with essential digital skills and modern computer equipment. In these challenging times, however, we also need to strengthen our defenses against propaganda, misinformation, and disinformation. These tools are right now being deployed by Putin's criminal regime to create chaos, spread confusion, and stifle our democracies. We should not let this happen. At the same time, we need to expand our cyber defenses by creating a unified European cyber shield. The shield should be powered by a joint European cybersecurity unit, which would protect public institutions, businesses, as well as citizens all across the EU. I'm certain that today's conference is an important step towards a more inclusive and better managed digital future. I wish you a super exciting and fruitful discussion. Thank you very much for inviting and having me.
Thank you, Mr. Andrijanič, for some great introductory words and some more insight into what our government is basically doing in the field of digitalization. Now, before going into the content, sorry?
My pleasure.
Thank you very much for your time. Now, before going into the content of the conference, I would like to present something about us, about the organization of this conference, and about some of our partners who made all of this possible. So before going into the content, let's say a few words about the holding, which is IPM Group, a part of which is also IPM Digital. So IPM Group is a holding of different business and organizational units working in the fields of digitalization, smart communities, communication, research, consulting, education, media, and allocation of EU funding, which you could see very well described in the video we showed in the beginning. So our company basically functions as a platform for experts from relevant fields that work as a bridge between clients from private and public sectors and offer them holistic and innovative business solutions. As you could see in the video, IPM Group is comprised out of 7 organizational units, so basically 7 different business units that each works in a specific field of digitalization. We're comprised out of a relatively young team of experienced individuals that use their knowledge and experience to create custom and tailor-made solutions for clients. So, in other words, the core fields of work throughout our 7 organizational units are consulting, digitalization, and public funding. We strive to provide any form of public financing or co-financing for all of our services that we offer to our clients. But what makes us different? This conference in itself shows our competitive advantage or our main differentiating factor compared to other similar companies in our field. We may not have all of the solutions that are needed for digitalization within our company, but we like to see ourselves or position ourselves as architects of digitalization. We try to position ourselves as a key project partner for our clients, partners, and other individuals that we work with, and guide them through different digital projects. For any kind of obstacle or issue that arises throughout our cooperation, we always find a solution either within our company or through our wide web of partners and collaborators. That is how we basically shape the future of some companies in Slovenia. Now, to say a few words about the main organizers of today's conference, IPM Digital, the Institute for Digitalization, is one of the members of IPM Group. It was founded due to the fact that digitalization is one of the core developmental challenges of the modern world. Our institute primarily works in the field of research, analysis, education, and applicative activities in the field of digitalization and other connected concepts. Our main purpose is to create content that enables the progress of innovative digital solutions for societal challenges on the basis of integration of different interdisciplinary fields. So the person or the organization that made all this possible is, of course, the US Embassy, as mentioned beforehand. So the Embassy of the United States of America in Ljubljana, Slovenia, is the chief diplomatic representation of the United States of America in Slovenia. The embassy is very active in cooperating with organizations from the Slovene civil society and business sector on economic, cultural, technological, environmental, and other issues. The embassy is supporting the Going Digital project through its NGO Small Grants Initiative, aimed at funding well-conceived and managed projects that strengthen ties between the United States and Slovenia on various fields and through diverse initiatives. One of our main partners and one of the organizations that is holding one of the individual panel discussions within our conference is Tico Pro. Tico Pro is a team of 16 highly skilled professionals helping their clients in successfully acquiring European funding for their projects in Slovenia, Croatia, and Austria. The team's experience, knowledge, and efforts has managed to build a network of approximately 600 clients who managed with their support to acquire co-financing for more than 800 projects in different fields of operation: innovations, investment, loans, energetics, tourism, etc. With more than 90% successful applications and with a value of all approved projects being over 115 million euro in total, they're a truly great partner for all fields of public funding and tenders. Bizjak has been acting as a connecting link between the regional and national level for 27 years, as it has public authorization from the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology, based on which it is entered in the register of regional development entities. Bizjak unites all 18 municipalities of the Gorenšek region, develops and declares programs and projects that strengthen regional competitiveness by connecting the needs of local communities and companies with national and European development policies and financial resources. Bizjak will also be holding a very interesting panel discussion with regards to European funding of municipalities. So that is it for our introductory words, or for the beginning of the conference. Now I would like to ask Dr. Tilen Gorenšek, our CEO of IPM Digital, to join me on the digital stage to discuss views on digitalization from different perspectives of key stakeholders in this field, and to shed some light on the solutions that Mr. Andrijanič mentioned earlier. Let me just switch my screen share to the correct presentation.
Thank you, Jakob. So here I am, very delightful and happy to be able to participate on such a delightful event that tries to basically comprehend all the positive momentums of digitalization and all of the negative consequences that human misunderstanding of digitalization and maybe lack of skills, as the minister before mentioned, somehow brings. So yeah, let's see what we got.
Thank you, Tilen, for those introductory words. So the first panel or first topic that we will be discussing with Mr. Gorenšek is the digitalization as a global trend of the 21st century. So we got a few key stakeholders or a few individuals that are active in this field in one way or another to basically give us their perspective on what digitalization means for them. So let's begin with our first presenter of some sorts. This is Jure Knez, PhD, the president of Devesoft.
Hello, my name is Jure Knez from Devesoft, and I have 3 suggestions for today. Digitalization of processes in government is crucial for high efficiency in companies. For example, reporting. As a company, we must file many reports to different institutions. Let's report only once, in a digital way. Second, the e-Slovenia mobile app would make a lot of sense to automate interaction with the government and simplify our lives. Third, in our company, we measure everything, especially the work efficiency. Why don't we do the same in government? Once the government is digital, a really nice add-on would be to measure efficiency of public services, resolution time, time of first response, and so on. If we want a competitive economy, we need digital and efficient public administration. Hello.
So those are a few words from Mr. Jure Knez. And now to sum up some of the proposals, or one of the proposals that were mentioned earlier in a few sentences by Mr. Andrijanič, that are somewhat connected to what the video basically said. So the first developmental proposal will be introduction of mandatory e-service to business entities. By introducing a single system of mandatory e-service for business entities in their secure electronic mailboxes, we will simplify their operations in all cases before administrative, judicial, and other bodies in which a higher level of security is required. This will ensure easier and faster service, as well as a higher level of success in resolving cases, and will save companies time and costs in doing business with the state. Now, Mr. Gorenšek, I'd like to ask you, what's your view on this, especially on the video and the proposals from the government on how to somewhat address the issues that were mentioned earlier?
Well, thank you, Jakob. First, I would like to say that I am delighted to hear that government will accept 25 new measures towards a more digitalized society. As Minister before said, it is basically the only reliable, realistic option that we have. And I pretty much agree with what Jure said. I think that governments should play the leading role in enabling creation and deployment of accessible e-services and basically understandable ICT content. Moreover, I think they should facilitate the development of a proper and non-discriminative environment for e-government through the regulatory frameworks, strategic directions, and of course, government guarantees. E-governance could become a similar powerful instrument in bridging the digital gap, such as ensuring affordable broadband access, but also new technologies could provide easier to use devices, such as more simplified computers and mobile communication. Because a good example of this can be a device called Simputer. It is basically an extremely easy way to use and be used by those that are illiterate. And that means that we are bringing basically digitalization closer to the people. I think that the digitalization of public administration is basically increasingly moving forward. And like Minister before gave few good examples, this is a process that cannot be reversed. This is a process that should be and has to be basically made even quicker, because some systematic literature clearly shows that public sector is like 20 years behind in the development than the private sector. And that is a big deal when it comes to user experience in the field of various services that we as citizens can use.
Okay, and an interesting basically insight into the whole concept of what both the minister and Mr. Knez said. Could I ask you, in your opinion, what would be some other basically activities that the government could or should do to even better or even quicker and more efficiently digitalize itself? If you just have a few examples, maybe. Yeah. Just
I'll keep it short and simple. I see three pillars. So first pillar is digital competences. The government should be the provider of competences, knowledge, experience, etc. What people need to basically have a sufficient knowledge how to use digital technologies and to benefit from them. That's the first thing. The second thing is basically digital culture. So we don't see digitalization as a technical problem. We see it as a societal problem. So we have to change our mindset. So that's digital culture. We had competences, we have culture, and the last but not least is cybersecurity. I see cybersecurity as an immune system of human body. So without proper cybersecurity, we cannot and we will never be able to fully trust technology, trust our communication, and basically try to implement digital solutions in those key areas that need precision, that require 100% or nearly 100% correctness, etc., etc. So those are the three main pillars that I think are urgent and should be basically enforced or developed from the governmental side.
Okay, interesting. And in the past, if I'm not mistaken, there have been some forms of public funding for basically educating companies on the field of digitalization, checking their cybersecurity, giving them strategies for digital transformation. But from what you said, I would say that this is only the first step, right? There still has to be a lot more done in this field in order to get to where we want to be, right? Yeah. Especially in the field of cybersecurity with current events that are going on globally. I think that is something that the government should be keeping in mind and knowing that it is costly to implement cybersecurity measures, and it is extremely important to have them, right?
Maybe just to say a word or two about the first part that you mentioned about public tenders, and I think that we'll be able to hear more about cybersecurity for one of our guests that made a video. So yeah, we have a lot of resources that are available for Slovenian companies and also other organizations such as municipalities, basically to do vertical digitalization. So those resources are not for the whole process of digital transformation, but certain resources are meant for certain vertical parts of digital transformation. So like you mentioned before, cybersecurity or digital marketing or digital culture or digital works, etc., etc. But what is the most important thing is the digital vouchers that Minister before mentioned. This is one of the widest action moves that has been accepted up until now. So these digital vouchers will basically cover a lot of Slovenian citizens. So the biggest majority of benefactors of public money will basically start happening now, or will become now, because of the mainstream public that will be able to use them.
Okay, thank you. I think we've gone through the specificities and discussions for this first point, so maybe we should continue with the next video that will probably, that will be connected with what we were talking about just now. So the next virtual stage is exactly what we ended our conversation on. This is cybersecurity, and we'll have an interesting standpoint or view into this field from Aleksander Bizjak, who is a certified ethical hacker.
Digitalization brings improved productivity, and it promises more efficient use of existing resources through automation, while relocating human resources where they are needed the most. However, digitalization brings challenges for the IT sector in terms of its implementation and security. Software development is a difficult and costly process. Modern trends indicate a surge of containerized, orchestrated and decentralized microservice-oriented architectures built with modern languages, while client-facing apps attempt to satisfy the platform ubiquitous requirements. Let's not forget to mention the appearance of a disruptor, the blockchain-based Web 3.0. Unfortunately, No system is impenetrable, and despite our best efforts, digitalization causes increased complexity, which in return represents increased risk. A single critical vulnerability is all that's needed for malicious actors to pivot across the system, gaining control and wreaking havoc. 2022 will prove to be the year of record-breaking cybersecurity breaches targeting critical infrastructure. And it will not magically stop there, it will inadvertently hit every one of us. Digitalization will need to address those issues, not through regulation alone, but rather through the cooperation of the public and private sector with cybersecurity professionals and engineers. But I believe we can do this together.
Okay, so that's the view of one of the experts from this field, so the field of cybersecurity. Now let's look into the proposals that were proposed by the government. So placing cybersecurity among the priorities of Slovenian and European foreign policy. Cybersecurity is also playing an increasingly important role in international relations in order to ensure the importance of Slovenia and Europe's role in this area, and thus strengthening the value of our foreign policy. We need a more systematic way of working. We therefore need to expand the role of cybersecurity in our foreign policy strategy and draw up an action plan in this area. For its implementation, the government must provide additional human and financial resources that will enable us to actively participate in the development of international legal and other acts, as well as invest in capacity development in this area in specific countries of special interest. Now, Tilen, what would be your view on both what Mr. Aleksander said and what the government is doing, basically? Sorry, Tilen, I think you've muted yourself accidentally.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Well, since I have a diploma in defense studies, I find this field very interesting. I completely agree with what Peter said before. I absolutely support the proposals on the field of cybersecurity. I would say it like this: cybersecurity is important because, like Peter mentioned, it protects all categories of data from theft and damage. And information, data, is the oil of 21st century, is one of the most valuable resources ever existed, because it has such a big added value, both in economic terms and also in political terms. So this protection of data also includes sensitive data, personally identifiable information, health information, intellectual property, governmental data, industry data. So we have to be very careful with how we basically try to protect the data and how basically we manage this data. Without a cybersecurity program, I think that no organization can defend itself against data breach campaigns, and this basically makes them irresistible targets for cyber criminals. So what Peter before said has a lot of sense. We are in a year 2022. We had 2 years of COVID pandemic, which basically exponentially pushed the development of digital technologies and the digitalization process per se in the front. So it's much faster than it was before 2019. And what happened during this time is that we started using technology much more than we did before for a lot of other things that we did before. And that means that we started collecting a lot more data than we did before. And because of this side, the other side, so cybersecurity threats, grew. So we have to understand that the threats are divided into 2 main groups, external and internal. And the most dangerous external threat are hackers, so criminals, etc., etc. But that is not the most dangerous reason for cybersecurity dilemmas, problems. It's the internal factor of employees. So a human factor is the most important factor of cybersecurity, and also should be the main focus of developing how would I say, a proper cybersecurity processes and also infrastructure. So I would say that Peter said everything completely correct. He wasn't unrealistic. I think that he was very realistic, and that we have to be careful in this year, because we don't only have COVID and the aftershock of COVID. We also have a military conflict that is one of the first conflicts that has an official hybrid war. So basically cyber warfare. This is the first major conflict that all hands are on deck in the cyber context. And we have yet to see what all of this will create for us, what kind of changes are coming, and how we will have to adapt.
Okay, an interesting viewpoint. I would especially like to emphasize the fact that you mentioned earlier that the human is key for cybersecurity, not the antivirus software or security measures or firewalls or whatever, but the human is key for keeping an organization or even an individual safe. So in order to truly become a cyber secure, not only company, but a cyber secure society, you have to take a holistic approach, which basically means that you have to educate your employees, educate people who are using devices that are in one way or another connected to the internet, and giving them knowledge that will allow them to be safe. Just as you have to learn how to, for instance, be safe when driving a car, and you have to get a certain license to do that, you have to be safe when using the internet. And I mean, through the work we do at IPM, we saw some interesting cases. For instance, in one company, some interesting cases that shed light on what encompasses cybersecurity. Not only your computer, but for instance, if you have your computer next to a window and anybody can see in your computer what you're doing, that's another cybersecurity threat. But it's not digital; it's physical. So these two worlds are basically intertwined with each other, right?
Very nicely put. I completely agree, because it's not only cyber security, it's also information security. So yeah, the field of cyber security, of course, it's not simple, it's very complex, but in the end, I like to make a lot of how do you say, parallels, a lot of parallels with fire protection. So like there's no 100% fire protection, there doesn't exist 100% cybersecurity. What we can do is try to prepare as much as possible for future events and basically create the best possible disaster management plan and system.
Exactly. Just one last thought on this point, and then we go on. This whole concept that we're talking about now perfectly connects with what we began the presentation with. So digitalization is not just some financing for companies in order to get them a website or to get them digital marketing or whatever, but digitalization is something that we have to change as a society. And if I'm not mistaken, in cybersecurity especially, there's a lack of human resources, basically, of experts, of people who know this field, of people who could educate individuals, companies, and managers, etc., in this field. So probably there has to be some kind of holistic solution to all of these issues, and they're interconnected and intertwined between each other, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes digitalization one of the most complex processes of the modern world. It's basically it's basically attached to every field of human existence. No matter how you try to put it away, try to negate it, no way. There's just no way that you can say that any field of human civilization has been untouched by digitalization in one or other form.
Yeah, we're changing as a society really quickly.
Yeah, indeed we are.
Okay, so let's move on to the next video and our next speaker. This is Ms. Polona Domadenik Muren, who is the director of the IMB program, the Faculty of Economics.
Personally, I associate digitalization most with digital transformation that impacts all aspects of our life. Digital transformation is not just about the technology, nor just about companies in technological industries or the tech startup scene. The digital disruption hits every industry and affects all activities, divisions, functions, and processes of the organization. It impacts the very business model as such. Digital transformation is about using the digital technologies to improve, connect, and often radically change the processes, enhance consumer experiences, focus on the area where business and customer value meet, and seeing new and better possibilities while using different and digital intensive ways to realize them. To understand the digital transformation, it's a key to put people and processes above technology, even if technology is a game changer. Digital transformation represents a way to alter and even build new business models using digital technologies. In that sense, it also goes beyond digitization, although that's often a condition to make it happen, and certainly beyond a digital savvy skill set and capacity, which is nothing less than a must in the age of an increasingly channel agnostic and digital customer. The pandemic has accelerated the need for digital transformation. The impact of emerging digital technologies on the economy and society is increasing. National digital strategies are now ready, but too narrow, emphasizing only digitization and digitalization, which uses digitization as a starting point for improving business processes. New digital technologies are a driver of innovation and economic growth and also make an important contribution to national competitiveness. However, the use of new digital technologies depends on various factors that determine the rate of technological diffusion, including the most important human element, so the human resources, the type and level of innovation of new technologies. By 2030, the digital technologies such as 5G, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robots, and virtual reality will be at the heart of new products, processes, and business models, resulting from the use of large amounts of data within the platform economy.
Isn't it interesting, as if Ms. Domadenik was listening to our conversation, giving inputs on what we already talked about. So yeah, great. It seems that a lot of experts are in sync with their views.
Well, not just only that, we can also see how digitalization is really intertwined, like you mentioned before. So the more we move into the vertical fields of digitalization, the more we see how it is really connected.
Yeah, I completely agree. So let's look at some proposals that are in a way connected with what Ms. Domadenik mentioned. International comparable evaluation of scientific achievements in the field of ICT. In order for Slovenia and the wider EU to become an important international center of ICT knowledge and innovation, greater openness of scientific research institutions is needed for leading domestic and foreign experts in this field. We will encourage the relevant institutions to decide on the financing of research projects and promotions or habilitations on the basis of internationally recognized and comparable criteria. We propose an evaluation that will be based in particular on the substantive assessment of achievements and not only on the basis of bibliometric indicators. In doing so, we follow the guidelines of the European Commission, which advocates a shift towards a qualitative assessment of the contribution of individual researchers to the development of the research field. Now, Tilen, again, I'd like to ask you for your view or standpoint on,
basically the point is that we have to measure digitalization, we have to write it down, and we have to have the methodology that enables us to be able to compare with foreign countries, with foreign municipalities. So basically the whole point behind this is ISO standardization. So you already have a lot of international standards for smart cities, for smart municipalities, for companies, for information security, etc., that basically enable you not only to be synced on the level of same requirements that you have to fulfill to be able to have a transactional relationship with each other and to talk and to do business, but also to be able to measure the progress, to be able to avoid the mistakes that have been made, to basically be an intelligent learner. But I would like to start from a different angle. Rupert Murdoch once said quite a good quote, the world is changing very fast. The big ones will no longer beat the small ones, but the fast will beat the slow. So this is a big mind changer, because up until very recently in our history, the big ones always prevailed. The fast ones didn't always beat the slow. The bigger, the better was the logic. And now these things are changing. It's not the size that matters, the size of the company or the pockets of the company, but it's resilience, its agility, its flexibility, and its sheer speed to basically adapt to the changes that are showing itself in the organizational environment. What Ms. Polona said, it's very true. People-centered. That's what digitalization has to be. It has to be people-centered. Human element has to have the upper hand. It has to be the most important element, not the profit, not the profitability, but the human element. Why? Because in digitalization, of course, we have physical factories that will become factory 4.0, 5.0, and be accompanied with artificial intelligence, etc. But one more important thing is has started to happen. Humans are becoming cognitive factories. And with every factory, you need to know how to manage it. So what we need is a different kind of human resource management that is adaptable and up to date with the requirements of this digital era in which we live, and with the requirements of digital transformation that companies start. I would like to point out one statistic. Only 16% of companies that start digital transformation come to the end of road successfully. So 16 out of 100 companies are successful when it comes to transforming its business, digitally transforming it. And I would also like to point out this Thrive model that is very important when we discuss the success of digital transformation, when we discuss the human element, when we discuss the human centeredness of digital transformation. It has to be, so the Thrive model describes digital transformation as a transformative. So you don't want just a faster butterfly, just a faster caterpillar. You want a butterfly out of caterpillar. So you don't want to change things. You want to transform things. You want a holistic approach, like you mentioned before. You want to have a 360 view of things that are happening, of all the challenges that may show itself. You want to be responsive. Jeff Bezos said that and did that when COVID started. And look at Amazon now. You cannot deny them the success of the very responsive way that they moved when the COVID started. You have to be innovative. What digital transformation and digital disruption is all about. Innovation is the key force behind digital disruption that is changing the industries. And you have to basically seek value of products, of people, of processes, of business, and you have to have the enterprise logic. So if you go by this arguments, if I can say it like that, then you can say that you are doing a human-centered, holistic digital transformation that has realistic chances of succeeding and basically bringing you what you seek. So you seek added value, more free time, and also some change to the, I would say, dull state of our workforce and labor force and our, how would I say, sheer economy that has become. So that would be my reply to this topic.
Okay, quite an extensive reply, right? Just one connecting question or follow-up question. If I'm not mistaken, you did your PhD in the field of digitalization and HR, right?
Yes.
So for our viewers, a lot of them probably have their own companies, work in this field, or have employees in one way or another. What are some like practical advice, really simple practical advice on how to implement some digital transformation in a company or any kind of different organization? Just in a few words.
In a few words, first thing, create a digital strategy. Second thing, start listening to your HR professionals in the company. Start empowering people for innovation, for decision-making processes. Start collecting feedback from employees and start implementing those changes that they want to see. This is very important because we are moving away from industrial relations and going to more human-centric and more, how would I say, more service-oriented employee relations. That would be that.
Okay, perfect. I think that's great advice that everyone should keep in mind, right? So let's move to the next speaker. Oh, sorry, excuse me. There was another proposal connected with what Ms. Domadenik said, and I'll just read through it. I think we touched on a lot of these factors already. So connecting with leading universities in joint research projects, we will establish an information platform for Slovenian science called Science Desk, which will be intended for researchers, as well as project offices at universities and institutes, as well as students and others who are active in scientific work in their regular professions. The key activities of the Science Desk platform will be the coordination and support of applications for major international projects, the establishment of international project groups, the implementation of online learning symposia between Slovenian and foreign researchers, and the simplification of documenting domestic and foreign research achievements. Now, again, maybe Tilen, just in a few words, if you have anything to add, otherwise I'll continue with the next video.
No, I wouldn't add anything. It makes perfect sense. It's one of the things that we have to do, and we already discussed a few months ago in one event that Earl from Faculty of Social Sciences organized, and we talked with Chinese guests how important our joint research projects. And also, I think that COVID-19 pandemic showed how important it is that we collaborate in the field of research.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's continue with the next speaker. This is Mr. Ernest Žejn. He's the CEO of a multinational company, Žejn Group Ltd or DGO.
Pozdravljeni. Ko sem prebral digitalno agendo Evropske unije, sem bil res žalosten. Potem vidim celotne organe, tako evropske kot lokalne, ki se predajajo vedno bolj in bolj digitalizaciji. In jaz postajam vedno bolj in bolj žalosten. Zakaj? Ker imam občutek, da kot civilizacija zares trpimo za pomanjkanjem vizionarjev. Žalosten sem, ker se pogovarjamo o digitalizaciji namesto čisto o ničem drugem. V življenju še nisem srečal človeka, ki bi rekel, o super, zdaj imam pa jaz PDF dokument namesto fizičen dokument. Ok, so what? Mi kot družba, kot civilizacija se moramo spraševati, zakaj sploh rabim dokument? Današnje tehnologije so seveda pomembne, omogočajo nam celovitostno preobrazbo, ampak ljudje živimo in delamo v Evropski uniji zaradi standarda življenja. Mi želimo biti boljše, mi želimo živeti bolj kvalitetno, kakovostno, ne pa da vidimo PDF dokumente namesto fizičnih dokumentov. Mi kot družba se moramo spraševati, kje lahko avtomatiziramo, kje lahko robotiziramo svoje delo. Kaj je nepotrebno, da delamo. Ne pa, da se pogovarjamo o poti, o digitalizaciji kot poti, mi se moramo pogovarjati o cilju, robotizaciji kot cilju. In to je ključnega pomena zame osebno in za organizacije, katere vodim.
Okay, so that was it for Mr. Žejn. So let's look at what the government is doing. Training and demonstration centers and laboratories for the development of technical ICT and digital competencies. In cooperation with the economy, we will establish a network of educational demonstration centers and laboratories for the development of technical ICT and digital competencies, which will enable young people to get in touch with the latest technologies and encourage the transfer of advanced knowledge and innovation into practice. This will gradually increase the number of quality technical staff who will master the technologies of industries 4.0 and 5.0. Within these centers and laboratories, professional training and research will take place through the direct use of the latest machines and technologies. These training courses and test research environments will be aimed at young people in primary, secondary, and tertiary education, as well as researchers and employees in the public and private sector. Tilen, what do you think about, before asking you what do you think about what Mr. Žejn said, I would like to emphasize, it's a really different and interesting perspective. It's refreshing to hear a bit of a different view on digitalization from an expert who is actively and successfully working in this field. So what's your view on what Mr. Žejn said?
Okay, first thing, it's very important what you said. He is an expert with experience in this field, and that's what it's all about. So we need to basically educate people to be able to have a discussion about what is digitalization, what is automatization, what is digital transformation, what is digital disruption, what is the concept of parallel world, what's the effect of robotization, the ethical and moral dilemmas in artificial intelligence. So I agree with Mr. Žejn. He has put it very wonderfully. We shouldn't be talking about digitalization. We should be talking about automatization. But we talk about digitalization because nobody has a slightest idea what it is. So how can we talk about the holy grail of technological revolution before we pass the previous levels of understanding and challenges that await us? He excellently shed a light on the problem of understanding technological revolution in the midst of which we find ourselves. But to be critical, again, can we expect from the people to know the difference between digitalization and automatization if they are digitally illiterate? So in this context, I would applaud again to our state for creating such actions as the one that you have just read, because competences, literacy, digital literacy is very important. It's the key element in understanding the various processes that digitalization brings, such as automatization and robotization. I agree with Mr. Žejn because I think that automation, robotization will create the biggest rise of productivity in human history, and will also give us, on the other side, the most leisure time in history. But the fact is that because of automation, we will be we will be much more productive than we were in the past. We have to understand that automation describes a wide range of technological uses that reduce human intervention in the processes. So basically, if you take the human element out, you automate the process. You have it done quickly with less resources taken, etc., etc. And automation also includes various control systems. So it's not only about automative printing of paper. It's also about automative mobile traffic system. It's about automating every aspect of our life that we can. So in this context, I of course agree with Mr. Žejn. We should be talking about automation and robotization. And in my humble opinion, I think that we will, in few years, when we basically create all these fundamental layers of competences and knowledge that the mass public should have.
Okay, thank you for your insights. I'd like to emphasize here from a practical perspective the importance of digital literacy, because we ourselves today have had some technical issues with pretty simple stuff that in theory should be a no-brainer, basically. How to sign into Zoom, how to share sound, share video. And these are the elementary things. And we, even as experts, sometimes have issues with them. But if we look at the general population, these issues are probably even greater, and it's even more difficult for a lot of people, especially maybe the older population, to get this knowledge, where to get it from, how to get it. Do you think maybe the digital vouchers that are given by the Ministry for Digitalization will, in a way or another, solve this issue, especially with the educational models for the elder community?
Well, we have to be realistic here. Problems won't be solved. We are searching for the best possible ways to mitigate the problem. So digital gap, such as generational gap, it will stay. It won't go away. We just have to find the best possible way to mitigate this digital gap, to make it smaller, to basically that's the thing that we talked on in the beginning. What's the role of the government when it comes to closing the digital gap? Of course, it will never be closed, but it can be made smaller. And that means that more and more people will be included into digital society, into digital state, if you like.
Okay.
So yeah, digital vouchers are a great instrument. They focus on those groups of citizens that have been, in a way, left out in the past.
Okay, thank you for an interesting view and the inputs. Now let's move forward to the next video, which is a bit different. It's made by Jan Filip Jordan Frangeš, a video creator and basically video producer of innovative videos, both on social media and on the TV. I believe he works for 24tour.com. So let's see what he has to say about digitalization.
Kaj meni pomeni digitalizacija? Sigurno mi predstavlja tak dvorezen meč. Imam nekaj lepega zapovedati in nekaj slabega zapovedati, ker kot videoproducent, kot vsakodnevni uporabnik družbenih omrežij in te tehnologije, mi je digitalizacija the best. Zaradi tega, ker lahko delim svoje vsebine s velikim občinstvom. Družbena omrežja mi predstavljajo tudi velik vir zaslužka, dohodka. Sigurno je digitalizacija potrebna za razvoj človeštva, za razvoj tehnologije, za razvoj vsega. Tako da super. Ampak mi ima pa beseda digitalizacija nek tak grenak priokus, ker se mi zdi, da je vseeno za razvoj človeštva tudi zelo slaba. In specifično za razvoj kot človeka, kot samega, za naš mentalni razvoj, se mi zdi, da nam pušča veliko slabih posledic. To sem tudi pri sebi opazil. In zato se mi zdi, da je v današnjem svetu digitalizacija pač nujno zlo.
Okay, perfect. It's interesting to see a viewpoint of someone who's not directly in the scientific or direct part of the digitalization process and how he sees basically this whole concept. Connecting to, in a way, to what he said, high-speed broadband for everyone. Slovenia needs to speed up the elimination of both gray and white spots of internet coverage with the aim that by 2026, all households in Slovenia will have access to high-speed broadband internet. Following the example of Germany, the possibilities offered by satellite internet must be exploited, especially in the case of hard-to-reach households. By 2026, coverage of the extended majority of the population in key roads with the 5G network by all operators must also be ensured. This will reduce development divides between different parts of Slovenia, improve the competitiveness of the economy, and increase the use of public and other online services. Now, Tilen, I'd ask you for your view both on what Jan said and the proposals.
Okay, maybe first a just short comment on the news about high-speed broadband for everyone. I'm very pleased that this is going forward, because we don't have such a big problem with the lack of connectivity in Slovenia. But yeah, we do have white spots, gray spots that have to be eliminated. And let's be honest, we are not a big country when you take our geography into consideration. So there really shouldn't be any excuses why 100% of Slovenian terrain is not covered with high-speed broadband. So this is, of course, the move in the correct way. So again, I'm very pleased that the government is also pushing this forward. Regarding to what Jan said, I have to agree with him. He excellently pointed out that digitalization is double-edged sword for him. I think this is the case for most of us. Most of the time, we just don't realize it. Digitalization has far-reaching implications for individuals, organizations, society. While many studies, or most of the studies, focus on the positive aspects of this development, the dark and potentially unexpected sides of the digitalization for organizations have received less academic attention. Of course, there are many reasons behind this state, but that's not right. We have to discuss. We have to address the negative consequences, because as we will be able to listen later on the panel about mental health in digital era, we will be able to hear what are the problems, the challenges that have arisen because of not only digitalization in last 2 years because of COVID pandemic, but also in last 10 years, because when social media came out. I mean, we have to not cover our eyes, and we have to admit that what social media has done, or the consequences that social media are creating, are firstly not analyzed, have not been analyzed, have not been studied, and do not have any disaster plan or plan of management, or how to do it, or even what to do when some problem occurs because maybe of fake news on Facebook in some user group with, I don't know, 25,000 people in it. The examples of negative consequences because of misinformation on social media is abundant. So such as examples of other mental problems and other challenges that have arisen because of it. Of course, this doesn't mean that technology is bad, that social media is bad. I, for one, found many positive examples of social media use. But like we already discussed a few times today, only a person with the right competences, with the right knowledge, and the right goal in mind will be able to sustainably use digital technologies and to create benefits for himself, not consequences and negative effects. So in this context, having public debates being focused on ethical and moral dilemmas in connection to digital technologies is crucial. Digitalization has to become human-centric in order to offer the most it can, the most it has.
Okay, Tilen, thank you for that insight. Now, I think time is kind of forcing us to move on, but before we move on, I have to say something. What digitalization has allowed us to do, it's a great example of this. So one of the invitees for the conference was Minister Boštjan Koritnik, so the Minister for Public Office. He was sadly unable to join because he's at a meeting of ministers in Strasbourg. But with the use of digital technology, he was able to send us a short video about his thoughts on digitalization, for which we would like to thank him for taking the time while being in the field. So let's just lastly look at his view on digitalization, shed some light on what he will talk about, and then move on with our conference. I'll just switch to the video in a moment. Just a second, please. Okay. Okay, sorry for the delay. We are learning digitalization as we go. So just a second. And here we are.
I got a question, what is digital and what is digitalization? I must say, in my understanding, digital is doing procedures, doing things via digital ways, not with other means, for instance, paper. But if I'm really practical, and you may have heard I'm an expert on that, we can contact people via digital means, we can relate to those people via digital means, we can even develop emotions via digital means, and we can also receive digital currency, digital money via digital means. All that is digital, and it means we get to be happier, faster, and more easy.
Okay, so that's it from Mr. Boštjan Koritnik, the Minister of Public Office. So Tilen, your view on a more on a different basically aspect of digitalization that wasn't mentioned before, maybe a more practical and more first-hand look on digitalization.
If I give just a short comment, I think that Minister basically perfectly described what it means going digital. So apparently we as a society are really going digital. He gave great examples of practical digital use, and I think that these kind of examples are the ones that have to be presented in the public, so that also public starts to accept the technology, accept the changes that are happening, and basically implement them on the widest possible societal scale that it can be. Only in that way we'll be able to basically achieve the goal that Mr. Žejn mentioned before. So that is to bring the quality of our lives even higher than it is now.
Okay, perfect. So with all of these concepts in mind, all of the topics that we discussed and thoughts of digitalization, I would like to invite you, Dr. Tilen Gorenšek, to present some core information, the itinerary and the plan for today's conference. And with that, I give the digital stage as per se to you.
Thank you, Jakob. Okay, I'm just gonna need a minute, half a minute, 20 seconds to start the presentation. So like Jakob already mentioned, I will basically present the project Going Digital, what we have learned, and basically why we have done it. So I think that the screen is visible to everybody. Okay, superb. Okay, so I would like to start with a very short description about what is IPM Digital. So Institute for Digitalization, or IPM Digital, is a very highly adaptive digital think tank inside IPM Group. We at IPM Digital try to harness the power of research, development, education, and consulting within the field of digitalization in order to bring the most effective and efficient solutions to our clients. By sharing a 360 degree view of digital transformation, we understand that in order to conquer all the vast lands of opportunities, bridges must be built first and foremost between the public and the private entities that operate in the digital sphere. Digitalization is a fast-paced process, which is why researching it is so important. We had the opportunity to research digitalization in the context of Slovenian municipalities, retirement homes, healthcare centers, agricultural cooperatives, veterinary clinics and centers, municipal and regional agencies, and also Slovenian small and medium enterprises. What we have found is that field data supports theory, and that this is why we firmly believe that technological aspect of digital transformation, at least in this phase that we are now, has mostly been achieved, and that the societal aspect of digital transformation has not only to be taken into consideration, but focused on, since human beings as a providers and the users of digital technologies represent the biggest factor for further development of digital technology, either if that is for peacetime or for wartime, which is the example in which we find ourselves in year 2022. Also its added value, its security, and basically how we use it. This is why not only computers, but digital literacy, this is not only why computer literacy, but also digital literacy is so important. Without it, a true smart community just cannot exist. As an interdisciplinary team that uses an explorative approach, we have an excellent opportunity to look and react to digital disruption differently. And that is one of the reasons that led us to our project Going Digital. So if I move forward, what is Going Digital and why Going Digital? As already mentioned before, we see digital as a societal problem. We see our society in all of its greatness going digital, but also carrying with it all of its flaws. There are many different processes, activities, positive and negative ones, which will ultimately lead to a greater reliance on digital technology, and also it becoming an even greater part of our lives. In fact, there are many discussions out there on the web just how far we will go in the foreseeable future in various fields. So with a simple Google search, we can find a lot more or less reliable predictions for different fields. What we conclude from this is that the percentage of our lives being spent on, in, or with digital technologies will continue to rise, and it's already very high. It is more important to note than when we talk about the percentage of our lives that are already intertwined with digital technologies. We don't only mean time spent on social media consuming digital content, but also driving a Tesla, for instance, or talking to Alexa, or using some other form of IoT device. Using such criteria makes it obvious that the developed connected world already spends insane amounts of time in the presence of digital technologies. Perhaps as much as half of our times are in a way intertwined with digital technology. Metaverse doesn't seem such a far-fetched idea anymore when we look at the statistics from this perspective. Taking all the leisure activities that could be digitized into consideration, together with more digital native generations, we can clearly see that metaverse is something that is maybe abstract at this time, but in a few years' time, it will be one of the biggest generators of added value in digital economy. So when trying to sum up all, all activities and the project from the start, all the themes and discussions, in order to create a framework for our project, we basically came to 8 global mega trends that in our opinion, define digitalization and show a good picture of where we are headed. These 8 mega trends are also the reasons why we need further discussion and why we should be active in finding solutions. And I will try to describe all of them in a very short and comprehensive way. So by technology is penetrating all areas of social and working life, we mean that this is something that became obvious with the progression of COVID-19 pandemic. Aspects and areas that were still analog before are becoming more and more digital because of its effectiveness and sometimes almost unlimited capability for further development and scalability. It is no secret that the different crises bring different opportunities to use digital technology in a helpful, beneficial way. So we must discuss various obstacles, challenges that arise and basically decide, and we have to decide wisely regarding opportunities, otherwise they can quickly backfire, just as social media platforms did, for example. The global food systems will be redesigned due to increased demand, due to increases in demand, disruption, and new technologies. This basically means that we will witness a growth in global food consumption. We will see disruption to existing food production. Hint, we already see that in Ukraine and Russia, which will force decision makers to leave this so-called status quo area and adopt a new digitalized approach to basically change the mindset regarding food production. Other geopolitical factors should also be taken into consideration. I already mentioned the developing war conflict situation in Ukraine, but we also have to mention climate change. Having an open mind and taking smart sustainability into consideration can lead to long-term solutions that the public will support and be able to develop upon. Of course, we will hear more about this very interesting topic in the panel later on about environment and the digitalization and effects that they have on each other. The third megatrend is that the digitalization will open new horizons in every field. It might seem a bold statement, but taking into consideration that pretty much every decision we make, every perception that we have consists out of and on observable data, we can see that just by collecting more precise data, new horizons will open. So if we properly use these massive piles of information in combination with the right analysis tools, we can greatly improve the effectiveness and efficiency of our decision-making processes, which will lead to even more opportunities in that field that has been affected. Society will become more increasingly polarized. Polarization is never good because it directly violates cooperation, the concept of cooperation, which we see as the only way forward in a future that is in a complex world that we live in, towards a future that is smart, green, digital, sustainable, and safe. So it is true that digital communication is very often used to spread for spreading of fake narratives and misleading information. But we also have to be critical, and we have to take into consideration that mass propaganda existed before digital sphere did. Remember the 20th century. But what changed now is that the opposite side of the prevailing narrative and information giving also has a chance of sharing its view. So the balance of power in the context of sharing, spreading information has changed. We think that it is easier to fight against polarization now than it was decades ago because channels of communication in various parts of the world were fewer in the past and much more under control. Ultimately, we have the technological means to achieve information objectively, what we lack is societal consensus that would enable us to practically implement those solutions. So plastically, we need a system that is objective and authoritative enough that when he or she or whatever says this information is true, we take it, and this information is false, we believe it. So this is one of the biggest challenges of our modern cosmopolitan civilization, in my opinion. The fifth megatrend is that products will be valued on the basis of the amount of waste they produce. We believe that many tweaks and improvements will be needed to effectively fight climate change and all the consequences that it will bring. Waste management will become much more important in the future, and we follow the data that points to a realistic scenario of value shift. That means that with younger generations becoming more and more climate conscious, climate aware, they might start valuing products differently. One way is based on the one way of valuing them is based on the waste they produce, and because waste is one of the biggest underlying factors of climate change, it will, one way or another, have an important impact on the manufacturing sector and also on the end products this manufacturing sector produces. The sixth megatrend discusses the concern for environment will be priority factor in decision making. So with more and more green, zero carbon based policy and regulation changes that are either due to political benefits or true caring for the environment, concern for the environment is becoming a growing part of wider consciousness. More and more decisions will be made taking the effect of the environment into consideration. But change must occur on all levels of our civilization, not only on the level of individuals, small groups, families, and communities, but also on the level of nations, international cooperations. Because let's face it, international cooperations, together with some nations, are the biggest how would I say, releasers of various gases and other not so good stuff for our environment into the environment. So they are the ones that basically do the most damage. And if we don't achieve changes on this highest level, nothing that we do on the level of individuals, families, small societies will help, will change anything, because the magnitude of the effects that international cooperations and some countries have is really huge. In some cases, the vast majority of negative consequences on our environment is being created only by few companies on our planet, and that is the most disturbing part of this shift that we are trying to create. Again, technology is here. We will be able to make a shift only if we make a change of our mindset before that green zero carbon shift. So we know by now that the change is starting to happen on all the levels. We can see that in the various political campaigns, policy changes, etc. But I think that 2020s, with all of its challenges, will quite bluntly show us how much of this climate realization, climate consciousness, environmental consciousness we really have in the backs of our heads. The second megatrend talks about anxiety and fear and how they are becoming ubiquitous in our society. Due to many reasons that have been brewing for quite a while, our society is becoming more and more anxious. Fear is spreading, and fear, as we know, is never good. We are usually afraid of what we do not understand and what we do not know. the danger exists that digital technologies will be used for malicious purposes. We can see that very clearly when looking at cybersecurity or cyber warfare. We believe that negative emotional states, feelings, will drive a certain part of further technological development in these fields of emotional assistance to individuals and also in the field of education. We see digital ecosystems as underlying structures of digital society, which means that everybody inside the ecosystem benefits from each other. Developing the right skills, competences is therefore of utmost importance of every member of a certain ecosystem. And last but not least, new lifestyles will emerge and our value system will have to be redefined. We can connect with this with the changing labor and work markets. We can connect this with the changing way that we work. We can connect this with a lot of other trends. Our value system is already changing, and we can see that clearly just by doing a historical comparison. So we can do that if we compare our lives, our values that we have today with the state, let's say in 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, and we'll still see changes. We can do that in 1990s and we'll still see changes. If we move to 2000s, changes will become smaller. But only if we move to 2010 and later, those changes up for comparing to 2022 will become the smallest. So what I'm trying to say is that the pace of changes is very quick and the scale of these changes is becoming quicker and quicker. New lifestyles are already taking shape because of COVID-19. It has been a very important influence because before COVID-19, we did not see the wastefulness of our lifestyles in such an obvious way as we did when lockdown started to emerge. Just as nature managed to bounce back to a certain degree while our activities were hindered, so did we humans. And because of the realizations that we made during the harshest periods of COVID-19 pandemic, we are starting to adapt our lifestyles. This will change even more with the coming wave of automatization, as we heard before, and transformation of how we work. Productivity will rise greatly, but what will happen with all the time on our hands remains to be decided. So these 8 global megatrends basically consist for a framework of the vision and purpose of our project Going Digital. And now, if I move forward to the components of our project, there are 4 main components of project Going Digital. There are articles, introductory articles that were written for every panel debate that we hosted. It was meant to basically offer a point of view that can be further examined during the panel discussion. Point of these articles was that we tried to basically bring this topic that we were discussing on these panels to a wider public, to basically try to make it more visible, more discussable, and try to somehow get some fresh points of view from the wider public. Then we have debates, expert moderated panel discussions with multiple guests regarding a concrete topic that the current iteration of our project covers. We started off with a panel on digital healthcare and the silver economy. We discussed during this panel how important digital solutions in healthcare for elderly are, and how big of an impact members of silver economy are having and will have in coming years in the digital economy. Then we moved to the entrepreneurship in the digital era. We discussed various methods, various case studies, examples of being a good digital entrepreneur. We tried to discuss the differences between creating value in digital economy and in the real analog economy. And then we concluded these panels with digital solutions in education. The before mentioned described a global mega trends are also in conjunction with the panel discussions that we held. Reports were made after every panel discussion we did. We tried our best to basically sum up all the important points that were made during the discussion for our readers, followers, and in the public, and for the public. So they can basically read them in the future and follow our how would I say, iteration of our project. And the last but not least, today's conference serves as a culmination of different topics and trends regarding digitalization, and is intended to talk about different ways of us going digital and how various organizations can benefit from the resources that are available to them. Municipalities and companies alike will have an important role in the development of smart and sustainable communities. A final paper will be made after the conference that will include policy recommendations that we will share with the appropriate institutions for further evaluation and possible realization. So this is just an example of where we basically tried to spread out our content. We were able to post on 24hours.com. We were posting on our blog Homo Politicos. So we had 3 panels last year, and this is some stats of our project. So we reached 5,000 different viewers. Our panels had 1,000 views each separate, and our entire project reached an audience of 22,000. And because I'm quite a bit running out of time, I would like just to remind again the proceeding of this conference and to conclude basically my presentation. So at 12 o'clock, you will be able to join 4 different international panels and 1 panel in Slovenian language. You are welcome to join us and pick either digital entrepreneurship. You can join us on the panel about the impact of digitalization on the environment. You can join us on the panel about mental health in digital age. If you're a municipality, you are very welcome to join us on a panel about EU funds for municipalities, so how to get money out of Europe for vast and various projects of digitalization. And of course, Slovenian companies, you can join us at the panel EU funds for companies, where you will be able to get a lot of information on how to basically get funds directly from capital of the European Union, Brussels. So like I said, companies can follow our panel on EU funds for Slovenian companies in Slovenian language. And that's it. If you have any technical questions, you are kindly invited to write us on our info email to our technical team, and we will be glad to help you. Other than that, this is everything from my side. I would like to thank you for your time and for the attention. And I would like to wish you a very great time, and please enjoy the remainder of our conference. Thank you very much.